Brad Williams, Excel Prime. XLOOKUP, match any column. We've been dealing with rows. Now let's deal with some columns. What's going to be a little challenging here is a new function, and it's called the MMULT. And what does it mean? Returns the matrix product of two arrays. And you're saying, what? Look, we're dealing with columns here. When you're dealing with counting columns, a matrix allows you to count columns. I'll explain it to you shortly. We're going to again use the sequence. We're going to use columns because we're counting columns. Here we have the example. We have a range that starts at B4 and goes to H14. What we're looking at is code 4463. Well, within this range, there's a number 4463. And what we need to do is we're going to need to look at each column. Once we find, if we find this particular code, give us an output. That's what the XLOOKUP does. The MMULT will allow you to do that. Let's take a look at this thing. Here's our code. This is what we're looking for. And here's the result. Unfortunately, we're getting different colors. This particular item, here is the formula text. You should be a little more comfortable with sequence, but here we're using columns. What we're asking is, I want you to look in this particular series. I want one column, one row, and one step. And I want the outcome will be somewhere in this group series. That's where you start. Let's go into XLOOKUP. We have the lookup value, looking up 1. XLOOKUP, the lookup value 1. Why? Because the MMULT is going to look at this series. It's going to say, give me an output, and it's going to find either 1 or 0, whether it's true or false. We got a lookup array. Here's the array. Note, the array is just this entire range. What's the return array? Well, it's the group. Well, let's take a look at the array, and it looks confusing. You got MMULT and sequence, and what is all this stuff? Sequence is going to look, allows you to generate a list of sequential numbers in an array. We have columns, which is just going to be C5 to H14. What this says is that's our range, rows, the number of rows to enter, and it's saying, well, here's all the stuff, but sequence is only looking for 1. Sequence has to look through all the columns to produce a single number. And then 1 would be columns, start would be 1, and then steps would be 0. Let's take a look here. What is column C5 to C14? Well, C5 to H14 is just going to spit out all these numbers. So if we look here, it's just going to give us all the numbers. If we go to sequence, sequence is going to look at this information, and it's going to say row 6, sequence 6. Why? Because look at the 6 columns. We need to count the number of columns in order to determine the number of rows. I know that's really hard to logically think, but if you look at sequence, it says rows, and you're asking columns. In order to find the number, we have to first get a handle on the number of columns, figure out the rows. And here we have rows, and it says 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're going, what? That's a little confusing. And then we know the steps after that. Then the next thing is, how do we get from here to XLOOKUP? We're looking for 1. That's where this MMULT comes in. It's called matrix multiplier. Don't let the word intimidate you. If we look at MMULT, it's going to, don't turn off Excel after this. We're going to hit F9. I just clicked on array, and now you're going, what the heck are you doing, Brad? Well, this is what MMULT computes. It looks at the data, and it converts the numbers over into either 0 or 1. Remember that double negatives? The unary? That's its purpose. And what does it mean? If it finds 4463, it's going to say 1. Otherwise, everything else is 0. If you look across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, what is that? You go to sequence, it says 6 rows. MMULT looks at this, I'm going across 6. What breaks it up is the semicolon. We have comma, 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 semicolon. We have 6 columns in row 5. And then we just go down each row times 6. And you could see if you were to match this, number 1 here would be 4, 4, 6, 3 here under 9, row 9, column D. And if you look, here's the first break. That's the first row. This is the second break. This would be the third. And you can go on and on and on, and you'll finally see where this matches this 4, 4, 6, 3. What it does, XLOOKUP is going to go, what are we trying to do? We're going to look up value 1. Our lookup array is going to be F9. It's going to look at this. It's going to go 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. What are we doing here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. XLOOKUP is asking, where is this in B5, B14? Which number represents a new row? Count down. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's our answer. I know. Don't turn off Excel. Don't close this worksheet. Just practice on this. First and foremost, read up on the different functions. Read up on the different functions. Try to conceptually grab this. This is a good one. This one is complex. There's twists in this, and it's good. Really good to think through this. If you can figure this out, then you're going to be able to figure out pretty much anything within Excel and these different functions. Brad Williams, Excel Prime. Thanks for watching.